if you go to YouTube and you look up Knowledge Destroys Fear, you'll be able to watch this with all the different camera angles that we have going on in the studio. Or you can stay here on Instagram, and Miss Kelly's gonna do the thing with the bits. Alexa, stop. We've got to turn the music off, else we'll get copyrighted, won't we? All right.
Hello, Germany.
Hi, Germany. All right, so let's get started. Welcome, everybody. Happy Monday. It's a really super happy Monday because we're allowed to open our salons again in California. As of today, we heard. We don't know when we're exactly supposed to open, but we're really happy about that. But yeah, let's get into KDF Live. Again, we do this every week, and it's just complimentary. It's free education. I've been doing this a long, long time, so it's part of my giving back to the industry. And yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, I did a tutorial where we worked on convex layering versus concave layering. So we could see the two different distributions of weight vertically when working those kind of layers. And the shapes I worked were round, so that meant it got slightly heavier towards the back. And then last week I did a couple of variations of disconnection working with layering, and I worked a triangular variation and I worked a round variation. And so I haven't done kind of like a real technical breakdown of square layering. And it's very important that you understand square layering because it's that other distribution of weight. Whereas triangular pushes hair and weight forward, round pushes the weight backwards, square keeps it even. So square's for that person that's probably got really great head shape, really great face shape. You know what I mean? Maybe if they're too round, you use a triangular so that you close some of that in. Maybe if you want to open it, you use a round layer. Well, this is kind of that happy medium, and it's a really great balance. It's kind of avoided because it's probably the most difficult out of the three kind of shapes, and that is because when you work in triangular, you pull backwards. When you work round, you pull forwards. When you work square, you do both. Remember what's happening is, coming in here, Kelly, we can see this a bit better. We're working on a round surface, a round dome, right? So when I'm looking over the top of it, I can see that circular aspect of the haircut, or of the head shape, excuse me. And really what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting a square over the top of it. So you can see now, when I'll do this, I can see where the shorter parts are going to be and where the longer parts are going to be. See, it doesn't mean I'm going to cut it at this length, it just means that's the shape I'm going to cut. So that could be out here, you know what I mean? So we're going to kind of keep the mannequin's length around about collarbone, maybe, you know, in that long bob kind of world. So yeah, I've sectioned it into 4, working from the apex down to right behind the ear right there. And you see, when you start to put the comb on the head, these are actually the points of the head, of that rounded head shape. So that's kind of a peak of the head shape. So is this, all right? So is this right here in the center back, right where that occipital is, all right? So I'm identifying where those points are. See, a square layer, I can start anywhere on one of those points. So I could start in the back here if I wanted to. I could start here in the side if I wanted to, or I could start on the top. And that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to start with the layering first. I'm not really bothered about the outline. I know where the length's going to be. So, without further ado, let's get started. If you guys have questions, please feel free to ask. And yeah, let's just get on with this. You get your jacket off. Here, do you want me to hold that while you do that?
Sorry.
All right.
It was cold outside.
So just looking at that again, you can see the grid, basically.
All right.
All right, thank
Thanks.
you. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, of course. All right, so I'm going to start through here. What I'll do, I'll just turn that way so that the view is better for you, yeah.
Two cameras here, all right.
All right. So you can see there's already a length in here, and that was what we worked with the other week, and it's coming down to about, you know, just past collarbone. So I know that afterwards I probably might snip another inch off of that, but I'm not going to do that now. I'm just going to do that at the end. What I will need to be aware of though is where that length is going to be, because this length and the layer on the inside has to be the same. All right. Now I'm going to choose to fully layer this square vertically and square horizontally. So I'm going to make a cube out of this. Now I could literally just lift everything up to the ceiling and cut a flat line and then a flatness through here, and I could get a square layer, but what it would do is it would leave me more weight and more length down here. I'm going to go with the option of layering it pretty consistently throughout. So yeah, let's get started. So my first section is going to be a horizontal section from the apex to the front hairline, like so. When I start this, body position is going to be really important. Now, what I don't want to do is stand on this side, because if you notice the head shape curves down, right? So we've got a lot of curvature down here. So whatever I cut here is going to be shorter there. So if I start here, I might end up too short there. Right. So instead of working into the haircut, I will actually switch positions and I'll work out of the haircut. So fingertips at the apex, knuckles towards the hairline. And so what I'll do is I'll just lift that section straight up to the ceiling, and this is how I'm going to figure out my length. All right, so that's the standard length of a comb, right? So what I want to do is I want to have a look at where that length actually is. So from the hairline to there is going to be around that neckline. So I know I need to be a little bit longer than this comb. All right. There's many different combs. Did I bring that one over here? Yeah. So, no, I didn't, did I? Thanks. So this is a longer comb. This is my friend Anthony Edge. This is his orange comb. And it actually has little markers on there. So, you know, if you want to be quite technical, you can. So there are tools out there to help you with that. All right. A lot of us, what we go on when we've had a lot of this kind of extensive training is you kind of go by eye, you know what I mean? But if you're more want to measure things, by all means, please do that.
That's a nice, just like a nice kind of safety net too, huh? To
Yeah.
kind of use all of your tools that you have to ensure.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably working smarter, not harder. You know
Right.
what I mean? I'm going to go based on my 25 plus years of experience.
Sure.
So, but yeah, if I wasn't so confident, I'd be using a comb, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm looking at that, and I'm going to go with a little bit more on that, and I'm going to cut a flat line, a line just like a box, just like a flat roof. So what that does for me is that line I've just cut through there creates the distribution of weight from front to back. So when that falls, excuse me, it's either going to drop this way, or it's going to drop that way, or it's going to be consistent throughout, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what we're going for. Next section. Same thing. I'm stood on this side, so what's going to be happening is I'm actually almost pulling the hair towards me, aren't I? But I don't want to pull the hair towards me. If I pull the hair towards number one, then it's going to get heavier, right? It's going to be more of an extreme concave. So I'm going to lift up to the ceiling. I want a box, so I pretend I'm in a box, all right? And 9 times out of 10, you're in some form of a box, aren't you? Mm-hmm. So you use the surroundings to help you. So I lift in straight up to the ceiling. Combing the side of the section that I'm about to cut, not what I've already cut. If I comb this side, I'll push the guide into that next section, and I'll end up cutting this shorter than this because that became shorter.
Are you using a traveling guide or stationary guide?
So if I'm going to lift everything up to the ceiling, then it's going to be a traveling guide. If I was to bring everything into number 1, then it wouldn't be traveling. It would be just maximum elevation in this case. It's not over direction, it's elevation. I'm lifting up to the ceiling. I'm not pulling the hair backwards or forwards. So straight up to the ceiling. So again, if you're just joining us, guys, I'm working on a square layer. And I've just started, actually. I'm working through the top first. Again, you can watch this session live right now if you will go to my YouTube channel. That's Knowledge Destroys Fear. And you'll be able to watch this with multi-cameras and all that kind of stuff. So I don't need that, so I don't take that. And I'm moved basically over to the natural round of the head. And once we get to this point, that's when it literally becomes stationary, because I'm lifting everything up to the ceiling and there's no horizontal part to the head shape anymore. It's now vertical. So if anything, I could bring whatever reaches up into that, because again, I'm lifting it up towards the ceiling.
We have a question. Why don't you take vertical sections instead?
I could do, right? So if I start to work vertically, right, then I have more awareness of where my outline is, right? But then I've also got the same situation, whereas I've got to be aware of that I'm pulling this straight up to the ceiling, right? So to me, comfortability is working this way through, because it's a bigger amount than what this would be each time. So it's kind of swings and roundabouts. You pick which way you feel you want to do it. It's a square shape. You can stand and do it the opposite way if you wish. I could start back here if I wanted to. I'm choosing to start this way. So that's that done, and now I'm going to cross-check that. I cross-check the opposite way. So now I'm looking at it vertically. And there we have it, the ceiling. So that's what I wanted. So now I'm going to move and do the same thing on this side. Hope you guys are doing all right.
There's another question
Yep.
here. What do you think people who sometimes cut without a comb, just using their fingers?
Well, I think each to their own. You know, certain people like to do things a bit differently. I think there's room for both, you know. I think if you're not using a comb, you're not looking for precision, are you? You're looking for more of a visual look, so more disheveledness going on with it, I feel.
Kind of artistic
Yeah, it's...
choice of...
You do you do what you feel like, what you're really into. You know, and that's what's amazing about haircutting, especially nowadays. It's more acceptable, whereas before it was like, oof, you can't do that. You've got to be classic, or you've got to be point cut and texture. It's not like that anymore, is it? And that's the beauty of it. Now notice I'm staying on the same side to even cut this side than what I did that side. And again, that's based on cutting out of the haircut versus into the haircut. So again, it's the same thing. I'm combing the side of the section that I'm about to cut, not what I've already cut. That's the guide. If I comb the guide, then I move the guide off base. And that's how the guide becomes shorter. And then you end up cutting that next section shorter than the guide. That, to me, is what's known as a mistake. So I'm always protecting the guide. So again, working through just using my previous as the guide and elevating up to the ceiling. Noticing that there's more coming off of this side because this side was the concave layer, whereas the other side was the convex, so there's more coming up when I lift it up. So, keeping going, and now I'm at the natural round of the head. So, from this point down, my guide is now stationary. I'm using some throwback scissors today.
Oh, changing it up today?
Yeah, I'm using my original Vidal Sassoon scissors that I first got in, God, the mid-90s. And they're still amazing.
It's the whole vibe today, huh?
It's a vibe thing today,
Yeah.
for sure. All right, and now I'm going to cross-check through that. So let's have a look at this.
There we go.
And again,
Flat.
nice and flat. So if I would have brought those sections in towards the center, then that line's going to be more like so. So I'm protecting more weight that way.
Here's a question. Do we
Yeah.
build more weight or increase more visible volume and texture? As we elevate everything up, we cut too much from the top of the head as compared to the sides.
You could ask me that one again. That was
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
words.
Try to rephrase that one a little bit.
Yeah.
Do we add more weight or increase the visible volume and texture?
Well, let me talk about what it does with weight, this particular haircut, because what's going to happen is eventually I'm going to come through the sides here and cut this way, right? And so a lot of people are going to call that flat layering. Some people call it square vertical, right? Which makes sense. It's a square vertically. But like I said before, I don't want to call both dimensions the same thing. I want there to be a distinguished difference between the two. So I'm going to come through here vertically, and we used to call this flat layering, but if you think about it, it's still concave. It's just not following the head shape, which is convex. But when you start doing that, obviously you're starting to put weight into that area where the head shape is at its roundest, right? So you can build weight while still working a flat layer, for sure. You'll have some people that will think it's graduation, but graduation, it has to be shorter at the bottom. It's in the name, it's gradual. All right. So now I'm going to switch now and take this into the back. All right, so the first thing is to get the top in. So that's what I'm doing. I'm establishing my layer. And now I'm turning into clip guy. All right.
Does haircut give volume or it just gives shape?
It's going to be a bit of both, you know. Because of the square shape of it, the structure of it is a bit stronger than a round layer or a triangular layer. So it will have an element of more support for volume or body, whatever you want to call it. But the longer that hair gets, the flatter that becomes. You know what I mean? So in this area and here and above, it's going to do that to it. It's going to give more life to a curlier or wavier texture. It's going to give more lift and body to it. But the longer that hair gets, the more gravity will pull that base down, so it doesn't work anymore. Good question. So now, taking that into the back, again, the head shape's going to round through. So I'm going to work from the apex out again. So I can work against the head shape and keep that nice and flat. Now, if you notice, my elbow is down. A lot of people are all about keeping the elbow up in the air to keep that nice and level and flat, but there's going to be a point where you can't reach it. You know what I mean? I'm on the taller side, so I can reach those layers. But what if you can't? You know what I mean? If you're all about the elbow, then that's not going to work. But if you drop the elbow, it actually gives you a lot more height and leverage than what you think. So keeping my elbow low, and it's all in the angle of the fingers.
It's so much better for your posture and your shoulders.
Yeah, I wished I would have taken that into consideration in the formative years.
Right.
So just taking sections all the way through. Lifting straight up to the ceiling. Try not to do that again. But we've moved all the way
Yeah,
over, haven't
sorry.
we?
It's more camera, trying not to block that camera as well.
Excuse me. So straight up to the ceiling again. It literally, you're pulling everything up to or out to the walls or the ceiling of a box. So I have that in my head that there's a box, and I'm actually in one, right? So I'm copying where I'm at.
Is this going to be posted? I have to go back to class.
Yes, of course, we'll put this up on the IGTV, like we always do, so you can watch it later. Or you can watch it on YouTube, because I'm
Yeah,
sure it'll
same
be up
on
there as
YouTube
well.
too.
Keep kicking that, don't I? It's my big feet.
Her feet are in the way. You're welcome. You got some love about your pants earlier.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
So basically nothing else now is reaching up to that. So now I can move onto my other side.
Hi from Poland.
Hi, Poland. It's so cool that we get people from everywhere watching
It's so,
this.
I just, it's always so amazing how many people just, like, all over the world. It's really unifying.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Here's another question. What is the easiest way to make these square box layers look even on a side parting?
Okay, so that's the problem. You can't. Unless you like visually do it afterwards without doing it technically. There's no technical way. It's a box. So if you have this part of the box shorter than this part of the box, it doesn't mean it falls right where it's want to. And then obviously moving into the back of the haircut, it's going to be shorter in the crown on one side and longer on the other side. It's not like a round layer or a triangular layer. Square is very, you know,
Not a lot of flexibility.
it's not really flexible shape.
Yeah.
But once you do like low side partings, it's not supposed to be balanced because it's already like below the round of the head, you know what I mean? So those kinds of shapes you can get away with doing that with it. But I would say it's more of an even shape, so it's probably no parting or middle. You know, and it's...
Unforgiving. Yeah.
I don't think it's unforgiving. It's actually quite a nice shape. It used to be something that I would be like, no, I don't think I'm ever going to do that again. But really, it's, you know, when you put it up against like the standard lob shape and put a square shape into it, it looks really good. And that's why I wanted to do this and show you guys is it's actually a really nice looking haircut once it's finished and once it's styled. And I'll definitely post the finished results afterwards, like I always do. All right, so we've done the top. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this into the sides. I could leave this as is, right? It leaves all this weight down here. But what it does is it actually leaves it heavier in the back now than it is anywhere else. So I want it to be a consistent shape throughout, all the way through. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work through vertical sections through the side and the back. And now I'm going to bring everything to the wall of the box. I've just done the ceiling, so now I'm going to send it to this wall over here. Now remember, the head shape's rounded. So if I start at the front, right, the head shape's going to curve from that point. So I don't want to start there because if I use the wrong guide, once we get to this point, it'll be a lot shorter.
Bring
So I'm going to start there. That's just like starting here and not there. You know what I mean? So let's do that. And now the haircut will really just start to come together. So the length I'm going to use is the length at the round of the head. Right here, right there.
Right where that.
Yes, because that's the difference between the top and the sides, isn't it?
Right.
So that's where I'm going to get the length from to make my corner. So I move along. And there it is. Keep in mind, this is the convex layer from previously. So there'll be a lot more coming off on the other side than there is on this side. So now that is the length. And look at this. This is the highest point of the hairline really through this side area, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So by starting there, nothing's going to disappear on me now. I'm at the weakest point, which is that right above the ear area. So the hairline drops from this point. So that's got to be the best place to start, because then you know you're protecting your length.
Right.
So let's move through the front now. Same principles as what I did on the top, except now that's the ceiling.
Kelly, are you doing your haircut? Yeah, I'll be doing your haircut after this. Thanks for asking.
Yes, we've got more coming up after this. We've got a really good one today for you. Got a little surprise coming up for you.
Uh-oh.
So, yeah, make sure that you're in tune and watching what we do later. So that's my flatness. So by doing that, when we look through this part now, so right where that natural round of the head is, look what's there.
Yay.
Corner.
A corner.
So if I would have got my guide lower, that corner would have been lower. You get what I'm saying? So I either want it to be square or I want it to be rectangular. You know what I mean? So you can start to make those decisions. But now look at how that's falling.
Yeah.
It changes it. It gives it a lot more body and a lot more volume, I guess the word is.
Really fluid.
It's always been the word, hasn't it? Yeah, it's a great shape. I think people avoid it because it's square. You know what I mean? It's like, what? Square? We either pull back or we either pull forwards. You know what I mean? If you do both, then you get corners. And it's putting them in the right places.
Right. Right. Corners aren't the enemy.
No. No, if you put them in the right place, they're amazing. So again, taking every section and sending it to that wall. Starting to run out. Took too big of a section. There we go. So backtrack a little bit. Took too large of a section so I couldn't see my guideline. So go in there, take a smaller section.
Michelle says, I get so confused. I know this is true square because it's a box. I was taught to take everything to the top. Mind blown emoji.
Yes, so if you do that, then it's not this way, is it? So it just comes through and it allows you to remove a bit more weight and you get more shape in there. It's a nice looking shape once it's done. I mean, it obviously has its, I think like if you think about what its roots are, this haircut is probably the friend's haircut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it's done a little bit shorter maybe.
Monica and Rachel both had
They both had it, yeah. So if you like blow dry this out with a round brush, then it's going to look 1994, isn't it? it.
Hit that with a flat brush and then do some flat iron curls there.
Yeah. So come through now.
And cross-checking here.
Just having a look through and seeing what happened with that. And you can see it looks just like this wall that I brought the hair to. Cool.
Mhm.
So now working that into the back, same thing, bringing everything over to this wall through here. Still in the position with my fingertips pointed down. It's probably the easiest position to get a flat layer. If I work this on the inside of my fingers, I would always have that tendency to pull the hair down, because that's how my arm moves. It's a natural swing of it, right? So by working on the outside, I'm able to get to that angle and I can lift it if I want to, so I can protect. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Question, what all textures would you recommend for this haircut? Oh, yeah.
Wavy, straight. Remember, when doing curly hair, it takes on an expanded form of what you're doing. It doesn't fall and then move around independently. So if you cut a box on curly hair, guess what it looks like? A box. Yeah.
So you're coming into the back here?
Yeah, and I'm bringing everything over that reaches to that wall. Remember, when you worked the top, I lifted everything that reached up. It's the same principles. And basically what's going to start happening is you're going to start to see some of that hair drop out on that underneath. So again, I've not done anything with my outline length yet. I just kind of went into what I'd already had. And I'll probably play with the length at the end. So my sections are remaining vertical, and I just keep sending that hair over this way, that way. So I can make this wall right here. And I'll do the same on the other side, right?
Cube, right?
It's a cube, I'm just cutting the cube. Now you see that just drops away because it doesn't reach to it.
Right.
And it doesn't reach because I use this as the guide, right? Because that's the highest point of the hairline. So this will just drop out.
So would technically that guide that you took from above the ear and the guide that you took from the apex be about the same length?
Yes, if it's going to be a square, then they need to be the same, right? If not, it'll be a rectangle.
Right.
So when you start bringing this closer to the head shape, like in men's haircutting, in barbering, then that will play a massive role based on what it's going to do to the face. You know, I can make the face squarer, or I can make it leaner and more rectangular. So same principles with this, but it's further away from the head. So just understanding what shape does to head shapes and face shapes.
Right.
A lot of hairdressers don't know that stuff. They just do something and then blow dry it to make it look like it's supposed to look, right? You know, what we do here at Knowledge Destroys Fear is like we learn how to cut hair and what haircuts work for what face shapes. You know, which distribution of weight. So that's this done all the way through. So now I'm going to move on to my other side. So again, just like the wall.
So you just ended like at the center back?
Whatever reach.
Whatever.
Whatever reaches to here. Because again, I'm going to come through here later and come through and take and make this flat and make this square. So by doing that, I'll create a corner there as well, just like I've created that corner through here. So let's do this side. I'm going to move her over. So I could work this by standing here and working it this way. All right? So we're still working on the outside of my fingers and working so. Now, when I do that, it might look like it's simple, but when you try it, it's not going to be. the tendency is to always do that.
That made my palms sweat a little bit.
Yeah.
Just thinking about that
Yeah,
position.
no, I've been trained to do that.
Yeah.
There's only a small percentage that can really nail that in like that. Because most people aren't going to be shown that way because it's a trickier way of doing it. But with practice, anything's possible, right? So you can do it that way if you want. Logic tells me that this is probably the better way. Now, the only issue with this is this whole like, hey, I'm in the front of my client right now and we're really close and this. So it's just whatever you feel comfortable with. This is a mannequin, so I really don't care at all.
The arm put right in your face.
Yeah.
Tristan said the only shape you can start anywhere on the head.
Pretty much, yeah, man. Is that Tristan who?
Morrison?
Yeah, he would know. Tristan and I used to work together at Vidal Sassoon. So another classically trained haircutter out there. Tristan's also left-handed, so if you're a lefty, he's a good one to get in touch with. So is Ben Brown, he's another lefty. Ben Brown has an English accent, and Tristan has a Canadian accent, so whichever one. Yeah. So now working again, that's the round of the head right there. So if I want to, I could get rid of that, so I don't use it as my guide. And I know that I'm going to use the length that's at the round of the head. So let's do that. And there is that length.
Tristan says I'm more handsome.
So I'm going to just give that kind of a ballpark feeling of the area, and I'm going to say it's slightly bit heavy, so I'm going to come up a little bit more and take some more off of that about there, and then we're going to make it nice and even. You know, in this particular like haircut, I first learned on shorter hair, so square shape being on like a lady's classic layer. And then,
Contemporary class.
yeah, bringing it into longer hair. But yeah, I learned it in relation to something that's much closer to the head shape, so you really do see the effects of why you would do that, you know, to fill in that area so that you don't round that through. You know, when you're going to do a pixie or a crop, when you take hair short, you can either follow the head shape, but what if that head shape's not brilliant? Then that's why you want to put weight in certain areas, so it hides all of that.
Question, 90 degrees all around?
No, definitely not 90 degrees all the way around at all. If it was 90 degrees all around, then this line would follow what the head's doing. It would copy the head shape. And that's a convex layer with a head shape to it. I'm working a square layer, so there's shorter lengths and there's longer lengths throughout this haircut, all the way through it.
Yes. Blowing people's minds left and right.
It's always funny because every time we do something like this with the square shape and we go into the intricacies of it and that, people are always like, wow, I never even realized this part of it. And that just shows you where we're at in haircutting and schools and training and that. You know, it's pull hair backwards or pull hair forwards. Well, if you do both, then you're able to put corners in certain areas of the head shape to balance roundness or to get rid of roundness. That was like the whole thing that got me into haircutting even further, was that science behind it, that it does this and it does that.
I'm thinking having just like open discussions about it too, right? Because when I early in beauty school, it's just kind of like monkey see, monkey do. You saw somebody do something and then you try to copy it, not really knowing why it did something.
Right. It's fun because Tristan and I would probably talk great lengths about stuff like this when we were younger haircutters.
Okay, here's a question. Can you tell me how you check for equal length? I know you don't do the usual pulling hair down, it's just visual.
Yeah, well, if you noticed, I did give it a little feeling in there. I did look at that. In this case, I do that. And then I'm also going to look at it. I'm going to look in the mirror all the time as I'm doing this to make sure that it's consistent. If you use the right elevation, if you use the right over direction, these will be identical. So then you use the same spot on the head shape as you did this side. It should all click into place. It's if you brought that in and you didn't this side, then things are going to go off. And that's the beauty of cross-checking and having a visual look at what you're doing. In the mirror, you know what I mean? So I have this monitor in front of me, and that's what I'm using all the time to see balance and that. So what you guys have seen on YouTube, that would be the mirror, basically. Yeah. All right, so now moving into the back area there. Let's have a quick look at that. Make sure that we made it. Yeah. So again, nice and flat like the wall. The easier is to make it get longer, isn't it?
Right.
So it's not the easiest of haircuts in that sense, because you really have to think about this one. You really have to bring the hair to the right place. If you're pulling hair backwards, it's somewhat triangular, isn't it? Even if it's not consistent and even, but square has to be, else it's going to be so obvious.
I think someone, Milo Hairdresser says, hi, which scissors brands are you using now?
Oh, the scissors I'm using right now are vintage. They're Matsuzaki Vidal Sassoon. So these are my original Sassoon scissors when I was a teacher at Vidal Sassoon. So these ones say Vidal Sassoon, not Sassoon. And they're nearly done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But they're working out.
Well loved.
I've not used them in years.
They're well traveled.
And I cut with them the other day, and I was like, yep, I think I'm going to bring them back out. So using a smaller scissor than what I've been used to. So let's get cracking through this. So again, all I'm doing is I'm bringing the hair over to that wall. So if I'm not sure that I'm bringing it to the wall, then I would make the wall the mirror. So when I take this section, I can look over in the mirror and make sure that I'm directing it to the right place. The mirror is going to let you know exactly what's going on because it doesn't lie, right? But if you're like all over the place and look at something, then that lies. But if you look in the mirror right before you open and close the scissors, you'll see what state you're in before you cut hair, right? And if you look like you're in a proper state, you know what I mean, like you're playing Twister or anything like that, then that's what the mirror's for, to make sure you're in the right place.
Measure twice, cut once, right? Double check.
Yeah. You can always cut more off.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if you cut too much off, it's too late, it's gone. You see, all that drops out below that, because that's below the occipital ridge. Because this was where we took the guide from. So to me, that's kind of a key part of this haircut, is starting right above the ear when it comes to the length in the sides of those layers. So that you don't end up with that unexpected, oh, where's my length gone?
Right.
You know? You said we're going to protect the length.
But also remembering what shape that you're trying to create, so even if when you do pull the hair out and things drop out, you don't cut anything, that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so that's the sides done. Well, the last part of this haircut now is to do the back. So there's the sides, from front to back. So now we're going to do this. Because right now, it's heaviest at center back. Right? So it's not truly square. Because right now it's doing this. Yeah.
Right, because you pulled everything from center out.
This
center
way.
out.
So it's kind of roundish. This. You know what I mean? So now I need to come through and flatten this through now. So right now there's a big corner there because I brought everything over here. So I'm literally going to take that corner off and push that corner to actually create two. Right?
Right.
You know what? Like, look at this. See, if I cut that corner off, I now have two. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to come through it this way and cut it off. I'm going to come through this way and cut it off. Cool?
There's a question here. Does KDF teach any men's hair? Is it possible to get a one-on-one with DJ with layering techniques fit for men's hair?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, all it is you're just taking it closer to the head shape, you know, if that's the kind of length that the guy wants to wear. But yeah, we'll do some barbering for sure. We'll get some of that going on in here.
And then there's information for one-on-ones.
Yeah, if you want to take a one-on-one with me, just you can leave a direct message in Instagram, or you can email me at dj@thefactoryhair.com, and we can set something up. The one-on-ones is awesome because it's one-on-one being a friend for free, so it's 2 for 1 really. So if you have friends and you want to share that experience with them, and sometimes when it's one-on-one it can be quite intimidating for the student, you know what I mean? And I'm not really that intimidating at all. But to bring a friend, it's always a lot more fun, isn't it? So. And now that we're open, we're allowed human beings in this place, then I definitely will be opening the one-on-ones back up and in-person education. All right, so now I'm going to go I'm going to go this way so that we can see over here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut the back. So this is the last part of the square, the cube. So right now, I'm just going to take a vertical section through the center back. Let's get that out of the way. And again, it's going to be looking at where that round of the head is like we did through here. And it's literally, it's the same thing all the way through. So that's what we're going to use. So we're in this region, aren't we? So I'm going to take that away. And there's the guide. And literally this
So this is straight up.
doesn't reach, does it?
No.
Yeah, no, it's straight out from the head, and I'm cutting flat. It's not 90 degrees though.
Right.
90 degrees would be like this. Exactly. So remember, put the comb on the head the opposite way, and that will tell you what 90 degrees is from that point of the head shape. So 90 is like this. So that's why a flat layer lives in the concave world, because it's got shorter pieces and it's got longer pieces. And that's what a concave is. It works against the head shape. All right. So just looking at this now, having a visual look at, okay, so where's this falling? And then where's that falling? And we're in the same area.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with that. I'm not going to be measuring, not going to get my measuring stick out for it. So I've enjoyed this one because it's quite a different technical than what I've showed you guys already. Plus I've done it on both sides. So we've committed to square layering all the way through. Oh, you're very welcome. That's why we're doing this, guys. It's all about sharing and giving back. From my point of view with this, it also gets us together and we can cut hair in a different way. You know, even when the salon is open, it's different. It's education more of instead of dealing with your client and all that kind of stuff. So it's good for us to do this as a team. And we'll keep doing it because that's what we're here for. It's all about sharing. So generally it'll be on Mondays. And yeah, we'll keep doing this. We're also going to be back after this as well. The rest of the team's here, so I don't want to be selfish and make it all about me. Hey, look at me. Yay. We'll get everybody in, cut some hair, so everybody can share their perspectives. You know, they all work here and work with clients on a regular basis. And it's good to see how they'll take something maybe I've shared with them or something they already know and adapt it into their everyday work. And to me, that's really valuable for you guys. You know, I break down things technically and I'm the theory guy with it. But then there's other people that take what I teach them and then they put it into real everyday life stuff, which is really cool. I spend the most of my time teaching, so I'm not always working this into a clientele and that kind of stuff. So, all right, so now we'll do this other side.
Here's a question from Daniel Diaz. It says, how do you keep the hair from flicking out when the layers touch the top of the client's back?
Blow dry it a different way.
Yeah, it's a styling thing.
That's a styling thing, because guess what? Layers flick. That's what they do. It's the opposite to graduation. Graduation turns in. Layers does this. You know what I mean? You could change it into more of a convex layer, and that will help push that in a bit more. But when you're working concaves, it means that there's a slight heavy area and there's a lighter area. So you're going to get flick. And isn't it annoying that one side flicks differently to the other, right? Have you ever noticed that? That happens on pretty much everybody.
Everybody's asymmetrical.
Exactly. We're not all consistently the same.
Ira says, been a quality one, Giza. Brings me back to when we came into the industry for Rachel.
Yeah, Giza. So guys, it's Monday now, isn't it? So next Monday, Ira's going to be here with me in the studio and we're going to be doing a Giza's Live session for you guys. It's going to be in the multi-camera studio. It's a Zoom thing. It's interactive. It's $50. That's it. And we're going to be up here for 3 hours sharing many different things. There's a ton of giveaways available. We've got some prizes or giveaways from Shark Fin Shears. They're giving away a pair of scissors. Or maybe I should say shears, because that's what they call them, right? Hairbrain's going to give some stuff, which is rad. As you know, I've always been in a very close relationship with Hairbrain, and they have the best tools and stuff, so that's really cool. And I'm going to be giving away my video series. Not just KDF2, but KDF1 as well. So, and then Ira will be donating some of his time for some education as well. So there's plenty of stuff. For $50, you could walk away with like $2,000 worth of gear, which is rad. And some top quality education from us too. So yeah, you can sign up for that by following the link in my stories. Yeah, well, that's next Monday, so we're getting down to action time. All right, so now I'm just going to kind of look at that visually to see my layering. I'm not going to blow dry this live, guys. I'm going to allow this to do its thing, and I'll show you the finished result afterwards. Just coming through and making sure that my corners are in the right spot. So I've got a corner right here, and that's right at the natural round of the head. All right, looking through here as well. There's that corner right through the middle of the crown. Bingo.
There it is.
Yeah. So I've created a box this way and also this way. So working on a round surface and creating a square shape, that's what you've got to do. So I could have started here, I could have started here, I could have started here. I actually started here on the top. So that's my decision. You guys could do it any way you want. Remember, you're just putting a box over a dome. So use your surroundings to help you. It can be quite complicated, but if you use the room, it's so easy. Remember when you layer, you lift everything up to the ceiling? You already know how to do that. So then make that the ceiling when you do the sides. Make that the ceiling when you do the back. You know what I mean? So yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. We had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. Hope you guys did. And I'll be back I'll be back on Wednesday. We're going to be doing another KDF Live with a special guest. We have special guests this week, so yeah, join us on Wednesday at noon for another one. And yeah, I'll be back then. And we're also going to be back with Kelly, Katie, and special guest after this. So stay tuned. About 15 minutes, we'll be back. All right. So thanks very much, and thank everybody on YouTube for tuning in.
Yay! Everybody on YouTube.
And I cut the convex layer. So I'm going to take the side part in, and let's look at what it looks like if you cut it evenly across the top. Look what happens. This side sits all the way down here. This side sits all the way up here. That distance is how much longer this side needs to be than that side as a guide. So I'm going to isolate the underneath, 90 degrees from the head. That's where we left off. You can see the underneath. And I'm just going to join that onto it. Now, if you're not sure where the crown is at 90, put your mirror here. Turn her around like I have done for you so that you can see exactly where I'm pulling to. So if I continue working the same, I might risk losing this length and outline through the front. So I'm actually going to bring everything back to the apex now. So now when I do that, it's even. Mind the head shape curves